Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about some tips for booth setup that is um, pleasant for people to see, right? So they always say your booth is your storefront. So if you are trying to sell your products, you want to make sure that your booth is set up in a way that's inviting for people. And there's a lot of psychology behind um, what makes people walk in and what makes people not want to walk in. Only going to touch on a few things. There's probably an entire universe of things that we could talk about, and we could probably add a couple more live chats to go into a little bit more depth on these, but these are the things that I thought of first. These are the things that I feel like are probably the most important things. And like I said, at the end, if you have if you have questions at the end, or if you have questions while we're talking about this specific topic, feel free to put it in the chat. Keep talking to me though, because it feels really weird to talk to myself unless I know you guys are still here. I'd appreciate that. So definitely give me some clues that you're still here. Okay, so first, make sure that your items are visible, right? So if you have all of your things, if you have a flat surface, a flat table, and all of your things are sitting flat on that table, are people going to be able to see your items from outside of your space? Are people going to be able to know what you have to sell if they're looking in from the outside? A lot of times when we're set up in an environment where they have to walk into your space. But not everybody wants to do that. So is your stuff visible from the outside of your booth? Are you able to see your things? And there's a few things that you can do to help with this. We talk a lot about, Valerie and I do, we talk a lot about height variations. Do you have things that are different heights in your booth? Do you have things that are up at eye level, at mid level, at table level, below table level? Sometimes when you have different items that you're trying to display, putting them at different height levels allows people to see them a little bit better. You want people to see your items when they're walking by your space. Now, a lot of indoor spaces, you're probably forward facing or front facing, as I call it, where your booth is at the front edge of your space and you're selling from the table. There is no room for people to walk into your space. But there's a lot of times that it's not. If you're outside and you're using a 10 by 10, you're more than likely you're going to have all of your things inside the tent. And if people can't see what you're selling, chances are they're probably not going to walk in. They're going to be, I'm not that interested to see. I don't want to walk into that space. Along with that is, I personally, in my booth, I sell a few adult only content. And I'm not talking naughty stuff. I'm talking swear words. Okay, so I like to put my adult only items at the top, at the very top of my racks. And I use 2 by 6 grid walls. Okay, I've converted everything to that. So everything hangs on a grid wall. But all of my adult language goes at the very top. Now there's going to be kids that will be able to read it. My godson was like, why does it say that? When he's like 10. So you're going to have that anyway. I actually started this last year creating a little sticker that says adult content, warning adult content, and flipping my items backwards. So on the back side of my product packaging, you see the back side of the item, and then it has a warning adult content sticker on the back. So when adults come up to the booth, they know, okay, I'm curious. I want to just look at that. That kind of goes for other adults who may or may not appreciate adult language. I know I've had a few people kind of give me a weird look, for the F word. So that's a sidebar tip. But keeping your adult only content at the top, do you sell things that you don't mind people, not people, do you sell things that you don't mind kids touching, right? So if you have items that are specifically made for children, or you don't mind little kids playing with, you can put that stuff near the bottom. Maybe you get a bench that you put in front of your table that lowers some items down to their level. I have these little magnets that I have a magnet board, and they're very popular with kids. And I started putting them more at, that was my, putting them more at eye level for kids because it attracts them and they like to come in. And honestly, I don't mind if they play with that. So that's my first tip. Do you have different heights? Are you displaying things at different eye levels for different reasons? Or are you putting everything down on a flat on a table? Flat on a table kind of gives two impressions to shoppers. And we're going to get a little bit more into the psychology part of what I assume is the psychology part. If you have stuff flat on the table, people are going to suspect that it's not worthy of buying. Okay, it kind of looks a little bit on the garage sale side, or the I don't want to say cheaper side, but that's kind of the psychology. So that leads into my next tip. So tip number 2 is to dress up your space. You want your table covered. You want a tablecloth that goes all the way down to the floor. And that serves a couple of purposes. It's going to give you some dress up to your space. Lucy. She's probably going to try to sit in my lap. But a full length tablecloth is also going to hide things for you. So you don't need all of your transporting boxes to be sticking out or standing out where people can see them. You want to hide those. So a floor length tablecloth gives you a space that you can stick stuff that you don't want people to see. There's some great like stretchy material tablecloths that you can buy. They have a really good purpose to where they don't get wrinkly, because you don't want your tablecloth to be wrinkly. And I've used those, but I'm going to tell you, they don't hide your stuff very well. Some of them are thin, some of them don't go all the way to the ground. So if you're looking for a stretchy tablecloth, make sure it doesn't have like that U shape in the front. Make sure it goes all the way down to the bottom of the floor, to the bottom of the legs. So tablecloth. What else can you do to dress up your space? You want to make sure it's clean. You don't want a lot of stuff sitting around. You don't want stuff that doesn't pertain to the items that you're selling. I know that there's a lot of times that we're bringing our own personal things. Maybe we're bringing an extra fan, or we're bringing, maybe our tablet or a notebook or something like that. That stuff's okay. Just make sure that it's not just scattered everywhere so people can see it. You want your space to be neat and clean. I highly, highly suggest you don't ever use a rug in your space. Although dressing up your booth space will definitely help, and adding a rug makes the space look really beautiful, there's too many liability issues there. There's too many tripping hazards. There's too many people who don't pick up their feet, or maybe they have a cane, or they have a walker, or they have a wheelchair. You don't want to create a space that people can't get into. Y'all with me still? Everybody say hi, so I know you're still there. Okay, so dress up your space. Spend a little bit of money on displays. I know that's really hard to do. Thanks, Teresa. I know that's really hard to do when you're first starting out. And I'm not saying, hi, Dad. I'm not saying go out and spend a lot of money on things. Valerie and I talked last week, and we were talking about find things in your house. Like, how many of you have Amazon boxes sitting around? So, if you have things that can help add height to your booth, like a box or like a milk crate, or maybe you bought one of those cute like wooden crate things from Michael's, like to store stuff in. You can use that stuff. Make sure that it's pleasing to the eye. So if you're using like an Amazon box, please cover it. Okay, you still want it to look pretty, but you can use items around your house. I know I've used a vase for a few things. I know like Valerie has a couple little cute baskets that she's put some stuff into. Amazon is always stopping here too. Um, so, oh, I said her name and she's right over there because we have an echo show. So find things around your house that you can use to help elevate your items. If you can't afford it, that's the best way to start. You remember last week I said we have to start somewhere. We have to start at at a lower dose show. We have to start using some of these odds and ends items that you find around your house to help you. I'm not saying you have to have 6 foot tall displays. That's not what I mean. You can start out with stacks of boxes. Valerie made this like platform thing for her booth where she has like 2 boxes on each side, and she bought this like shelf that she sticks to it and then she covers it. So she has like her main table, and then she has an elevated table that she can put other things on that helps elevate. That's what I mean. Try to create some different levels of displays so that not everything is laying flat. Okay, so when I say displays, make sure you're thinking kind of outside the box. There are probably a lot of really great things that you can buy from the dollar store, the $1.25 store now. So don't be afraid to peruse through and look. Try to think about what you have, what you can display, and what can you elevate for people to see from outside your space. And start with, that kind of stuff. So tip number 3 is it goes back to that forward facing. It goes back to that front facing. Teresa says, I've seen people that have bought the picnic table plastic benches and set them on the back of their table. That is a great idea. Be very careful about what you put on there, unless you can buy the things that clip, okay? Because sometimes those aren't very steady. So make sure you get the right size for the right size table, and make sure you can secure it somehow, especially if you put breakables up there. But that is a really great idea. Where was I going? Oh, forward facing, front facing. So you want your products, this kind of goes in hand with, are you visible from the outside? You want your products facing towards your customer. And of course, if you have a 10 by 10 in your space and you have to do a U shape, maybe you have 3 tables, maybe you have 2 tables or whatever. Obviously, some of that stuff's going to be facing a different direction. But you don't want, if you have all of your things on a single table, maybe you're in an indoor space and you only have an 8-foot table. You don't want your things facing in. You want them facing out to your customer. It don't matter what the back side of your stuff looks like. That can look however you want. Just keep in mind, like, some of those things people can see through, so you don't want anything too transparent or too open if you're going to be kind of messy on the backside. I know that I have when I was selling tabletop coasters, I had bought these special racks for them. They were actually CD display racks from back in the day when CDs were popular. But they were kind of see-through, but I was still able to put like my cash backs back there. I was able to put my drink back there. It was secured enough that people weren't seeing all of my extra things. They don't need to see your Starbucks cup on your checkout stand or in your display. You're not selling Starbucks coffee. You're selling your item. So make sure some of that stuff is put away for people to see. But you want everything to be facing forward. The next one is pricing. Are you making your prices visible from the outside? This must be the theme for tonight. Are we making our prices so if people walk by, they can see what your prices are? I know that's hard if you have a lot of things, a lot of different things, which we'll talk about next. But and a lot of times you have things that are kind of priced differently, and you might have little signs. But if you have a little tiny sign like this big, and you're 15 feet out from your booth, nobody's going to be able to see that. So you want to create big enough signage that people can see. Do you have enough of something that maybe costs $5 or $10? You can create a sign, like I just printed it on my printer, that says bookmarks $3, but it's big. It's like this big, and it's on white with black lettering, and my display racks are black, so that white sign is going to stand out. You can do hot pink, you can do colors of your brand, but just make sure it's visible. Make sure your wording is visible. The other thing that I'm actually going to be implementing soon is I plan to make little price tags for all of my things, and I have a lot of things, so it's going to take me a long time to get there. But I also will keep my big signs, but sometimes people get up in your space and the sign might be here, but your product might be way down here, and they're like, does this go with this? So they like look at it, and then they're like, how much does this cost? Which can be kind of annoying when you're trying to like talk to another customer or trying to wait on another customer. My husband just got home, so he might walk behind me because he probably forgot that I was doing this. So you want to make sure your pricing is visible. You don't want to have to look. I know Valerie has a really good system. She knows what a lot of her items cost. Yeah, here he comes. So just fair warning, he's forgotten. I bet you. Yeah, see, he's unlocking the door. He forgot his code. Yeah. Everybody say hi to Mike because he forgot that I was going live.
No, I didn't forget. I had to come in the house somehow.
So yeah, make sure your pricing is visible for people. Joelle said, I made metal signs for my prices. I tried something different at my show this past Saturday and ended up getting a few compliments. Oh, good. I'd like to see what you've implemented. Everybody says hi to you. He's being silly. I'm trying to go back to what Valerie said. When using boxes, make sure your boxes don't clash in color. Yes, so if you are just buying a box for display that you find at the $1.25 store, make sure it's something that matches your brand. And we can talk about branding and what that looks like at another time, but if it's not and you just need it for what it is, cover it, whether it's with wrapping paper, tissue paper, a napkin, a piece of material that you buy from the store. I know Valerie has used pieces of fabric that she's bought from like Joann's or whatever you need to do to cover that up. But make sure your prices are visible. You want to make sure people can see from the outside, because if I look in on a booth and I see that something that I think is probably going to be $50, but you're only selling it for $30, I might be more enticed to come in if I know it's only $30 instead of what I think should be $50. So make sure your stuff is visible. And the last thing, and we've been already kind of talking about it, but the psychology of shoppers. Okay, so most shoppers, and this kind of wraps everything up, most shoppers are not going to walk into a space that looks messy. They're not going to walk into a space that looks like you just threw it together. Spend some time planning out your space. If you have to set it up, my husband would never let me, but if you have to set it up in your living room, in your garage, in your driveway, just to see what it looks like, that's not a bad idea. But that's part of, do the smaller shows when you're starting out. Do those small shows, because I'm telling you, I've been doing this, I don't even know how many years now, and I probably have changed my booth setup every single time. Every single time I probably do something a little different. I've kind of gotten to a nice, like, this is for sure what I'm using, but I tend to move stuff around. I tend to, like, change what my signs look like. I tend to change what my checkout stand looks like, and we can talk about checkout stands later too. But just keep that in mind. Make sure that you are, when you look at it from a customer's perspective. You want to make sure that you are inviting. You want to make sure that you have a space that's neat and clean, and you're making this stuff. Most of the time it's made. Sometimes it's bought and you're selling it. But you want to sell your stuff, so make it visible, make it pleasing to the eye. If you look at it and you're like, oh, I can't see that, that means nobody else can see it. If you look at it and you're like, ooh, that kind of looks kind of messy, everybody else's thing is going to look messy. There is something about somebody crossing the threshold into your space that makes them feel like they're committed to buying from you. So they're not going to just walk into your space for the heck of it. There's going to be people who like to wander and like to see what you have. But if they're a serious shopper, they want to get an idea of what type of vendor you are, what type of products you have, and what kind of pricing you have. So you should also look neat. I'm not saying you have to wear dress clothes like I'm wearing right now. I'm not saying you can't wear a t-shirt. I'm not saying you can't wear jeans. But don't look like you just rolled out of bed. Don't look like you just threw on your clothes that have been laying on your floor or in your hamper for the last 10 weeks. Thanks, Carrie. I got it cut today. Your appearance matters too. That's the psychology that I'm talking about. So if your space is not inviting, people are not going to step in because they don't want to make the commitment to buying from you. So, oh yeah, I forgot. So just think about how somebody's going to look at yours, even if it's just a tabletop, because I know some of you don't have enough stuff for more than a tabletop, and that is completely fine too. But you want to make sure that tabletop is like a really good display. You want to make sure people can see all your items. You want to make sure they can see your pricing. You want to make sure it looks neat and clean, and you're not selling Starbucks or Big B or McDonald's or whatever it is. Maybe you got lunch or something. You don't want to see any of that stuff. So think about that. The only other thing that I was going to say is, Joelle, I might do a thing on like displays and tables and like what kind of items you might need. So we might have another video about that. The only other thing I was going to say about the psychology of a shopper is, how many different items are you trying to sell? How many different themes are you trying to sell? How many different, you know where I'm going with this? Like if you have, I think if you have more than like 5 or 6 of an item, and I'm not saying like, okay, I do bookmarks, okay, but I have multiples of different types of bookmarks. I have paper bookmarks, I have sublimated bookmarks, I have thumb resin bookmarks, I have fold over magnet bookmarks. I have a lot of bookmarks, but they're all bookmarks, right? So how many different things are you selling? Are you selling bookmarks and you're selling 3D printed things and you're selling keychains and you're selling whatever, jewelry, and like how many different things are you trying to display? Um, Mom says, like Dad and I displaying our stuff together. You are in a stage where that's okay because Dad's got his woodworking, which I would consider one theme, and you have your bracelet, which is another theme. And you guys are starting out. You're trying to get out there. So you're learning about shows and you're trying to like figure out your setups and stuff. I think that's perfectly fine. I'm talking about the vendors who have a lot of things. Okay, there's one vendor I know that has so many options. If you think about, yes, it's okay to have different things if they relate to each other in some way. That's from Stephanie. That is very true. They can be different things, but they should relate somehow. Okay. Um, when a person walks into your space and there are so many different options, they get overwhelmed. They don't know what they want because there's too many things to pick from. There's too many options for them to pick from. And if they get overwhelmed or they get confused or they're like, ooh, I don't really know which thing I want to spend my money on, they're not going to buy from you. They're just not. So it's okay, Steph. So if you think about what products you're making, what products you're displaying, how do they fit together? Are they completely opposite of themselves? Are they like really weird things that don't really fit together? Then maybe you need to scale back. Maybe you need to decide which items are really selling, and those ones are maybe the ones. Okay, we're all crafters, most of us, okay? We want to make all the things. I know, I'm like that. You all know that. Those of you that know me, you want to make all the things. You want to have a lot of different options because you're like, well, this person might not like bookmarks, but they'll like handbags. Those don't go together. So I would never put handbags in my space. I feel like it's too confusing for a customer. So if you are selling a lot of different things, and that's okay. Maybe when you do your research about a show, you find out that there are 10 tumbler makers at that show, and you make tumblers too. Maybe you don't bring your tumblers to that show. That's what I mean. Um, just try to make your booth look like it goes together. Teresa, I'm guilty of having a lot of different things. Definitely will scale back. Good idea. Thank you. And I'm thinking about maybe doing some open send me your video of your booth from outside to inside, and I would